Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve as a result of your confidence and discipline has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, and everyone else out there to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. How would you like that to be a normal way of you operating, not just something you do whenever you think about it? We put all this together into one mindset, one method, one philosophy. There's a book by the same name. This masterclass, this show, it is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is how they evaluate you, the sports edition. A couple episodes ago, I gave you the business edition. I got an evaluation sheet from a conference that I was speaking at, and I just articulated what those points or the questions are that are asked of audience members to evaluate a speaker. Now I'm going to tell you how a sports team evaluates a player who they're considering signing for their team. Now I will say that this evaluation that I'm going to use as an example here today came specifically from football, from the NFL. I saw this as an evaluation sheet on, any of you have seen that Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix, or docu-series that's on Netflix. There was a scene in maybe the first or second episode where they were showing an evaluation sheet that some team had done of Aaron Hernandez when they were considering drafting him for their NFL team. And I stopped, I paused it when I saw that, wrote down what I saw on that sheet, and now it's becoming this masterclass that you're getting right here. Now, while it was from the NFL, this material will be very insightful for everyone, anyone who would need to be evaluated for any job by a decision maker. So you could be a basketball player, baseball player, you could be a school teacher, you could be a graphic designer, a coder, anything, a maintenance person, any job that you could possibly be getting where you're being evaluated by somebody. They're looking at your background, your resume, and your history and deciding whether you're worthy of the job or not. They're going to be looking at these things that we're going to be pointing out here today. So you should make sure to check yourself against all of these factors that I'm going to articulate and lay out today. And as you listen to it, you will understand exactly that though it's the NFL, and maybe you've never played football in your life, maybe you don't care about football, maybe you don't care for Aaron Hernandez, understand that these points apply to any job evaluation. Point number one, today's topic once again is how sports teams evaluate players. Number one, dedication. This is the first thing on the list. How dedicated is this person to the job? How much does he or she care about their craft? And here's the follow-up to that question. How much can we tell that you care about your craft? Is it obvious that you care? Or do you care, but you got to tell us that you care? See, if somebody really cares about something that they're doing, it should be clear that they care through their actions, through their energy, through their posture, like we talked about a couple days ago. If you got to tell me that you care, you got to tell me that this matters to you a whole lot, you got to tell me that you're dedicated to your craft, then you may not be as dedicated as you think you are. When you're really dedicated, you don't have to tell everybody. You don't have to announce it. As I believe it was Margaret Thatcher who said, being a leader is like being a woman. If you have to announce it, then you're probably not. How dedicated are you to the job? Can we tell? Is it obvious? Not in a trying to impress kind of way, like you're trying to show everybody how much you care and trying to show off because you know somebody's watching or you know the cameras are on, but are you dedicated in such a way that your dedication shows through over time? Are you, as we talked about in yesterday's masterclass, are you showing up early? Are you making steady improvements? Did you get better from last year to this year? Are you better 3 years? Are you better now than you were 3 years ago? Are you getting better at that one area of improvement that kept getting pointed out to you? Do you still have that same area of improvement, or have you solved that riddle and gotten better at that thing to the point that it's not an area of improvement anymore, it's an area of strength? Are you making steady improvements? Do you invest in yourself independently? Are you doing things outside of work time to make yourself better at what you do, or are you only working on, no quote, company time, close quote? Do you continue to work even when situations are not in your favor? This is an important one when it comes to dedication. You know, I work with some players who play college and professional basketball, working on just their mentally staying where they need to be. And sometimes these players end up in situations where they're not playing as much as they think they should be playing. I mean, they didn't get on the team by the skin of their teeth. These are players who are actually really good players. And any of you who've never played a sport on a professional level, you may not understand this, but I'll help you understand it, that everybody's very talented on a professional sports team. And even if you think you're one of the most talented people on that team, you may find yourself not playing too much. Especially in overseas basketball, what happens is the rotations can be all janky. You could be the best player on the team clearly and not play many minutes in a game. You could play 5 minutes in a game overseas, even though you might be the best player on the team. You might be the leading scorer, and you might only play 5 minutes in a game, or you might not play nearly as many minutes as you thought you were going to play, but you still got to be dedicated to the job. You still got to show up early to practice. You still got to continue to improve. You still have to invest in yourself independently so that you're ready when your chance does come. And you must continue to work hard even though the situation is not in your favor. This all goes under the umbrella of dedication. So the question is, how dedicated are you to the job? And I want you to understand, these are questions that people are asking about you before you get the job, before you get hired, before they decide to take you on. They want to know, how much dedication have you shown up to this point? All right, not what you're going to do if you get hired, but what have you done up to this point before we decide whether or not to hire you. And I want to make sure I'm being clear again that what you say does not matter. People do not want to hear you talk about what you're going to do and how dedicated you are and how much it matters to you. I get emails like that all the time from an athlete who's trying to pitch themselves to me as if I'm the decision maker and says, no, I'm really dedicated to this game. I haven't gotten my chance yet. I would do great if someone would just give me an opportunity, if somebody could just help get me on. And nobody want to hear that shit. What have you done up to this point, and what can you prove that you've done? If you can't prove it, then it didn't happen. Point number 2. Today's topic is how sports teams evaluate players. And this is how any decision maker evaluates a potential candidate. All right, point number 2, self-efficacy. Definition of self-efficacy is your ability to produce a desired result. That's pretty simple, right? Let me say that one more time. All right, because you need to start using this phrase in a sentence. Self-efficacy, your ability to produce a desired result. In other words, do you have game? Can you play? If I'm hiring a coder, all right, can you produce the kind of code that I need produced? All right, produce this kind of, I want this as a result. Show me the code that produces this. Show me right now. You gotta give you 10 minutes to write that code. Do it right now. If you can't do it, you ain't getting a job. Usually when I hire somebody, if I hire somebody to work remotely or virtually, I always put them to a test. I give them some type of test job, and they got to prove to me that they can get to produce the desired result. I say, this is the result that I want. Do that job, and if you do this job well, then we'll move on to the next step of you possibly getting this job. But if they cannot produce the desired result, no way are they getting it. We're not even moving on to the next step, so they don't even have a chance to get hired. Do you have game? Can you play? Can you get the job done? And does your track record reflect that you can get the job done? Do you have a resume that shows you can get the job done? If you don't have a resume, doesn't mean you're completely ruled out, but you might be behind the 8 ball because there are other people who have a resume. They're proven that they might get consideration over you simply because they got the track record that you don't have. If you don't have a track record and you're like, well, how can I get a job if people won't hire me without a track record? But I don't have a track record, so I can't get a chance. Go make a chance. Go find yourself a chance. Go make one. Get yourself a track record, get yourself a resume, and then come back. If that's been happening to you. But do not use that as an excuse. It is not an excuse for a lack of achievement. Can you be given a job and trusted to see that job through to completion without the need to be supervised and constantly checked on? Let me ask that question one more time. It's a long question. Can you be given a job and trusted to see it through to completion without the need to be supervised and constantly checked on? In other words, can I give you a job and know you're going to get it done and I don't have to watch over your shoulder to make sure it gets done? Are you an A-level player? Are you a level 10 individual? Are you a person who's getting there early, metaphorically speaking, or are you an on-time individual? The early individual, I know I can give you a job and I know it's getting done. I don't even have to double check it. The on-time individual, I got to give you a job, then I got to watch you to make sure you do what I told you to do. Which one are you? Self-efficacy means you get the job done and I don't have to follow you around to make sure you're doing the job. And this, I'm gauging your self-efficacy when I'm determining whether or not to even consider taking you to the next level. I'm considering whether or not you should get a second interview. I want to know how much self-efficacy you have based on your track record. There's a guy named Michael Redd who used to play in the NBA. He was a shooting guard. And when he first got drafted into the NBA, he was on his team called the Milwaukee Bucks. And the coach at that time was a guy named George Karl. And Michael Redd relayed the story that when Michael Redd first got to the team as a rookie, George Karl came over to him and said, listen, rookie, I need a player who can make an open three-pointer. All right, that's what I need on this team. And until you prove that you can do that, I will be completely ignoring you. And then George Karl turned around and walked away. And Michael Redd said George Karl wasn't lying. He completely ignored me for 2 years while I worked on my ability to make an open three-pointer. And when he could finally make an open three-pointer, Michael Redd started actually playing in the games. Self-efficacy is your ability to get a job done. Now, what made it clear, or I guess we could say a little bit easier for Michael Redd, was that his boss, George Karl, told him, this is exactly what you need to prove you can do before you get a chance here. Now, some of you might not know exactly what someone wants to know you can prove you can do, which means you got to keep adding to your skill set. More skills equals more opportunity. You always want to be adding to your skill set in life. And if you don't have any skills, then it should make sense to you that you're not getting any opportunities. I've talked about skills in so many episodes of this show. And one of the most recent ones that I would tell you about skills is masterclass number 1185. 4 basic skills that will separate you from the average masses. Masterclass number 1028. The skills that you will need for the future. Masterclass number 604. How to fully exploit your skills. So if you don't have, also in episode 584, 6 skills every human needs for, I made this at the end of 2017, but for 2018 and beyond is going into this year as well. So filling your bag with skills, another one, and masterclass number 581, it just keeps showing up. So make sure that you are adding skills to your skill set and proving yourself with those skills, implementing those skills and showing that you can produce a result with those skills, because those are the things that people are evaluating you on. They're not going to give you a chance for a do-over. Oh, let me prove it now because I know you're watching. No, you got to prove it before they're watching. All right, point number 3. Today's topic is how sports teams evaluate you. Number 3 is focus. We've heard that human attention spans are getting shorter and shorter by the day, right? But I told you in masterclass number 1040 that attention spans are not as short as you think they are. A lot of people think that humans have an attention span of 10 seconds. So, you got to give it to them. You got to give them something that they can only consume for 10 seconds or more. Well, listen. There are a lot of jobs out here in this world where you're going to need an attention span much longer than 10 seconds. And if you prove that you have that, then you will continue to be a candidate. But if you prove that you don't, you will no longer be a candidate. You will not be considered for that job. So understand that attention spans, again, masterclass 1040, they are not as short as you think. And in masterclass 848, I told you how to lengthen your attention span. So if you want to get better at focus, go listen to masterclass number 848. Question is, when they're evaluating you, can you focus for long enough to learn a new concept? I mean, because it takes more than a 15-second Snapchat story for you to learn a new concept, I would think, right? So can you focus for long enough to do that? Oh, you say, oh, my attention span is 7 seconds, so I can't learn a new concept. Okay, bye. Thanks for showing up. They're moving on to the next interviewee, the next candidate. If your attention span is not long enough to focus for long enough to get the outcome that you want. I talked about the 5 forms of investment in masterclass number 609, time, money, attention, energy, and focus. Understand the difference between attention and focus. Attention is what direction you're looking in. Focus is what you're paying attention to, where you're putting all your attention, where you're narrowing everything down to while you're looking. So for example, you could be looking at a TV, but not really focused on what's happening or what's being said. Somebody could be talking on the television screen and you're not listening to anything that they're saying, even though you're paying attention to it. Or you'd be listening to somebody talking and you can hear that they're talking, but you're not really focused on what they're saying. You ever had that happen? One day when I was in college, one of my basketball coaches was talking to the team. We were having a team meeting and the coach was talking. And when he got done talking, he called on me. He said, Dre, what did I just say? And I kind of paraphrased what he said. He said, cool. Then he talked some more. Then he called on a different player. He said, Lamar, what did I just say? And Lamar was like, you said, and he tried to say it. And then he was like, man, I forgot what you said. And everybody laughed because it was kind of funny the way that he said it. But the point is, Lamar was paying attention to the coach, but he wasn't focused because he didn't hear a damn thing that the coach was saying. That's the difference between attention and focus. Do you have enough focus though? This is how you're being evaluated. Do you have enough focus so that you could learn a new concept when there are new concepts that need to be learned? And since you're just coming into this job or this position, I guarantee there will be some concepts that you need to learn. If you can't pick them up quickly, all right, then you won't get the job. They won't even hire you in the first place. And any of you athletes out there who plans on going to your next level, whether that be college or the professional level, playing your sport, I guarantee you there will be some advanced concepts that you will either A, be expected to know already, or B, you will be expected to pick up, grasp, understand, and implement quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean like that day, not a week, not a month, not I need help with this. Listen, all those will get you fired. All right, it's pick it up that day, implement it that day. And if you can't learn that quickly, listen, you know what happens to slow learners in life? They get left to die. They get left by the side of the road to die. You ever seen one of those, like a dead raccoon or something by the side of the road? Nobody even cleans up the body. They just leave it there. That's what's going to happen to you if you're a slow learner, if you don't have the focus to pick up new concepts. Do you have the patience for the necessary? Do you have the patience necessary for comprehension when something new is being taught to you? All these questions are questions that people are asking about you, and they're just going to base it off of what you've done in your past. And if you've done nothing in your past, then what do you think is going to happen? It's hard to learn when you can't focus. Point number 4. Today's topic is how sports teams evaluate potential candidates, potential players. Point number 4, receptivity to coaching. This is a big one right here. This is a really big one right here. I told you in masterclass number 720 how to handle criticism. In masterclass number 18, we talked about it as well. And in masterclass number 1316, correction is not criticism. This is something that is really important for all you millennials out there, you skinny jeans wearers out there, and that just because someone is correcting you or someone is coaching you or someone is pointing out a mistake that you've made and telling you how to fix it does not mean they're hating on you or trying to knock you down or bring you down or tear you down or any other bullshit bitch ass things that you all come up with anytime somebody's offering you some type of constructive feedback, or even if it's destructive feedback. Understand that correction is not criticism. Correction is just correction. All right, they're just telling you something that you need to do different. How receptive are you to being coached? Because I don't know about you, but if you've ever had a coach, I guarantee you your coach is going to offer you some things that feel like criticism, some things that may not be so fun to hear, some things that you may not be so excited to have had said to you. But if you're not open to those things, if you're not receptive to them, and you're not willing to take them and use them to make yourself better, then you might as well not even be coached. Either that coach, if you hire the coach might fire you for that. Or if you're on a team, you'll end up on a bench or off the team because you're not receptive to being coached. How receptive are you to coaching? Every sports team has a coach or a manager. These are the people who are effectively the boss. They're in charge. How receptive are you to hearing things from that person when they have some criticism? How much do you respect the authority of the person in charge? How much can you handle constructive criticism and keep your head up and stay positive and bounce back and actually do something about the constructive criticism that you heard? Your coach says you're not grabbing enough rebounds. Do you complain and say, oh, the coach is hating on me saying I ain't grabbing any rebounds? Or do you go and grab some fucking rebounds? Which one do you do when you're being constructively criticized? Do you look for the seed of truth within the criticism, or are you looking for the reasons to feel sorry for yourself and start bitching because somebody said something to you that wasn't quote unquote so nice? How do you handle coaching? When a coach tells you something, do you listen and apply it, or are you hearing it and saying that they're hating on you, or saying that they're negative, or saying that they never tell me anything positive? What are you doing when you're being coached? And I want you to understand something. All you athletes who are listening to me right now, that your track record, what you've been doing up to this point, is how you're going to be judged here. Not what you're going to do in the future, what you've done up to this point right now. So right now is the time when you need to start changing this if your answers are not where they're supposed to be. And you know if they are or if they're not. Do you bristle at the fact that someone told you that you could do better? Or do you think you're just so good that you're beyond reproach? If a coach tells you you could get better, that you can improve, that there's some ways that we can improve your performance, how do you respond to that? How do you handle not being a star? Especially as you move up from level to level, from middle school to high school to college, college to the pros. You might not be the star anymore. How do you handle that? Can you deal with the fact that you're asked to be a role player, or that you're not the center of attention, or you're not the one who's getting the biggest piece of chicken at the dinner table? How do you deal with that? Are you okay with that? Can you play a role? Can you play your position on the team where you're not the main person? Or do you fall apart if everything doesn't revolve around you? Point number 5. Today's topic is how sports teams evaluate players. Effective commitment. Definition of effective commitment is this: perceptions of someone's emotional attachment to or identification with their organization. In other words, how much do you care about the group that you're a part of? Is it just about you personally and you just happen to be on this group, or are you bought into what's going on in that organization? Are you with us or are you out? Are you in or are you out? Are you with us or are you not with us? How much does it matter to you that the group succeeds or fails? In a sport like basketball, especially, even more than football, this matters a whole lot. Because in basketball, everybody is capable of fulfilling every task and performing every role, unlike in football where most of the players only play half the game at most. In basketball, this whole thing of effective commitment, again, are you a team player or are you an individual player? Do you care more about winning, or do you care more about your personal statistics? Do you care about how well your teammates do, or is it just about how well you do personally? Are you the type of player who's only happy when you score a whole lot of points, win or lose, and you feel bad if you don't get to put on the show, but the team actually won? I've been around players who fit these descriptions, and I hated playing with players like that. Players who are all about themselves, players who care more about how they personally did than how the group did itself. And if you notice you have one of these players in your organization, you got to get rid of them immediately, because they're cancers. They will destroy the team from the inside out. Point number 6, combative attitude. Today's topic, again, is how do sports teams evaluate players? For team activity, for example, how well can you get along with other group members? Okay, this doesn't have to be in sports. How well do you get along with other people in your group, especially when there's a conflict within the group, or when someone in the group needs to be corrected, their behavior needs to be corrected? Can you get along with other people on the team when everyone's from diverse backgrounds? People have different perspectives. People have done different things. People have different ways of seeing things. People disagree. You may be used to being the star, but you're not the star anymore. How well do you continue to get along with people despite these truths? How well do you handle conflict? Can you deal with someone challenging you or criticizing you or disagreeing with you, especially when they do it in front of other people? Do you become combative? Do you become dismissive? Do you clam up and close up and not deal with anyone because you're not, being followed and agreed with all the time? There are a lot of people who can't work in teams effectively because they have these problems. They can't deal with being combated. They can't deal with being not combated, but confronted or criticized or disagreed with. A lot of people just get emotional when those things happen, and that destroys pretty much the whole situation. What is your track record of getting along with other team members, dealing with correction, criticism, confrontation? Some people are not fit to join teams because they can't handle anyone telling them anything other than how great they are. I've heard of companies saying that they don't hire someone, or companies that are small enough to do so, that they do not hire a new person until everybody who's already on the team has met the new guy. So if you're gonna go get hired at a company that has 9 people working there, you got to sit down with each one of those other 9 people before they decide to hire you. And if somebody feels strongly enough about not hiring you, you're not getting the job. It could just be one of the 9 people. When a company's small enough, a lot of them do this. I was in a mastermind group once where anytime a new prospect was thinking about or was interested in joining our group, that new person had to get on a call with each one of us who was already in the mastermind before we allowed them to join. They had to get on a call, each one of us, and then we would get all together and we would talk about that person and come to a mutual decision whether that person was good for the group or not. And that's the way that it works a lot of times. And again, organizations that are small enough to do so, they want to make sure that that new person fits in with the culture that already exists. And if you don't fit with that culture, you're not getting in. Doesn't matter how talented or skilled you are. Doesn't matter how long your resume is. You got to be able to get along with other people. Point number 7. Today's topic is how sports teams evaluate players. Social maturity. What is your interpersonal style? And this ties into the prior point of how well or how poorly you deal with others. The question is, can you communicate effectively with people and respect other people's differences? Being that when you get out here into this world, you're going to be dealing with people who have different They're from different cultures than you, different ethnicities, different races, maybe from a different country. Maybe they have a different way of seeing things. They have a different way of thinking. They deal with conflict in a different way. They deal with criticism in a different way. They communicate and get their point across in a different way. They have a different way that they learn how to do the same job that you're doing. So you're going to be dealing with people who have all kinds of differences from you. How socially mature are you in dealing with people who are not like you? And this is one that I've talked about in many episodes here. One of the most recent ones that I'm sure you remember is masterclass number 1378, which was titled Racism is Legal and Other Truths That You Need to Accept About Life. This ties into social maturity. A lot of people are very socially immature. They are socially stagnant. And you don't have to be, and this has nothing to do with age. You could be 40 years old and socially stagnant. These are the people who have a very what's the word that I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. It's a certain term I'm looking. It'll come to me in a minute. But they have a very stark challenge when it comes to dealing with people who don't do things, see things, believe things the same way that they do. It's their dislike or their discomfort with anyone who isn't like them in certain ways is visceral. You can feel the tension coming from a person who just is not socially mature enough to understand and accept a person who's not like them. The question is, how socially mature are you? Point number 8, mental quickness. Slow learners get left for dead. I mean, I already told you that many times here, but let me tell you the slow learners episode, which is masterclass number 601. You must be a quick study. Slow learners will get left for dead. How quickly do you pick up new concepts? How quickly do you adapt to new things? How quickly can you adjust to a change in a situation? Masterclass number 1380, how to adapt to change quickly. Understand that mental quickness, your ability to pick up things quickly and apply them immediately, this is not a luxury in a professional world. It is a requirement. You must pick up things quickly. If you don't, you will get left by the roadside for dead. In the NFL, for example, those of you who follow football, the playbook for an NFL team is a huge binder of a whole bunch of plays and formations and concepts, and they just hand you a playbook and you are expected to show up to practice knowing every single play that's in that playbook. So imagine a binder, and this is not a little thin pamphlet. This is not like a magazine. All right, this is a binder with a whole bunch of plays in it, a whole bunch of formations, a whole bunch of calls and personnels and all different types of things and concepts that are in there. They hand you the playbook and they tell you, yo, know this whole playbook by the time practice starts in 2 weeks or whenever it is. You need to know every play in there. If you're a quarterback in the NFL, you need to know every play. You need to know where everybody's supposed to be and what everybody's supposed to do on every single play. And you got to read what the defense is doing, at least what you think they're doing. And you better guess right, because if you don't, then you might end up turning the ball over and hurting your team and costing your team a victory and costing yourself a job. You got to know everything that everybody else is doing and everything that you're supposed to do. This requires mental quickness. This is why in the NFL, they have players, every player who's going to be drafted, they have them take a test that is a test of mental aptitude. And who knows if this test is an accurate assessor of people's mental aptitude, but they go by this. They have players take this test, especially quarterbacks, to gauge how mentally quick is this person? How well does this person think on their feet? How easily do they grasp new concepts? How open will they be to learning new techniques and new terminologies? Because if that person doesn't have the mental quickness, we can't have them on our team. We can't hire them for this job because they're not going to pick anything up. Even though they may be talented, they're not going to be able to keep up with the speed of the game at the professional level the way that we need them to. So they end up not hiring that person. You show up to an NFL practice not knowing the plays, and everybody else does, you know what's going to happen to you? You won't be in too many more NFL practices. And understand that adjustments get made on the fly. So a team may give you a whole playbook of plays, but during the week before the next game coming up, the coach might change 5 or 6 of those plays and say, okay, now we're going to do it this way. Instead of the way that you learned it, we're going to do it this way now. And you need to know that by the time you get on the field. And this is not about football. It's not about sports. Many industries or jobs are the exact same way. When companies pivot or they make changes or the head person calls in and says, no, we're going to do this differently today. We're going to do it this way instead. You got to be able to think on your feet, make adjustments in a moment, and be ready to adjust and adopt changing circumstances. Adapt to changing circumstances. Are you able to do that, and have you demonstrated an ability to do it? Not just are you able, because everybody's going to say yes. Have you demonstrated the ability to do that in your past, and can you prove it? Let's recap today's topic, which is how sports teams evaluate players. I got this again from watching a documentary about Aaron Hernandez when he was coming into the NFL on Netflix. But this material is not about sports. It's insightful for anyone who would need to be evaluated for any job by a decision maker. So check yourself against all these factors. Number one, dedication. How much do you care about your craft, and how can we tell that you care? Is it obvious? Point number two, self-efficacy. Definition is your ability to produce a desired result. In other words, do you have game? Can you get the job done? And does your track record reflect it? Number three, focus. Human attention spans are getting shorter by the day, or so they say, but we talked about lengthening your attention span. The question for you is, can you focus long enough to learn new concepts? Do you have the patience necessary for comprehension? Point number four, receptivity to coaching. Correction is not criticism. Every sports team has a coach or a manager. They're the boss, they're in charge. So how receptive are you to coaching? How much do you respect authority? Do you listen when someone is telling you something? And how do you handle not being a star? Point number five, effective commitment, defined as perceptions of your emotional attachment to or identification with your organization. In other words, how much do you care about the group as opposed to about just yourself? Number six, combative attitude. For any team activity, how well do you get along with other members, especially when there's a conflict and when something needs to be corrected? Can you get along with other team members, and what is your track record for doing so? Some people are not good with being a part of a team because they are too focused on themselves. And in some small organizations, they will have you talk to every single individual in there to make sure you fit with the culture before you get a chance to even move on. Point number seven, social maturity. This is about your interpersonal style, and it ties into the prior point of how well or poorly you deal with others. Can you communicate effectively with other people and respect other people's differences, because there will always be differences. Point number eight, mental quickness. Slow learners get left to die in a professional world, so how do you start and adapt quickly? It is not a luxury to be a quick learner in the professional world. It is a requirement. In the NFL, for example, the playbook is a huge binder of plays and formations and concepts. They hand you the playbook and expect you to show up knowing it. You show up not knowing it, you won't be in too many more practices. This is not about football or sports. Many industries and jobs are the same way. You must be able to think on your feet, make adjustments in a moment to changing circumstances. All of these points are used to evaluate you before you even get a chance to prove yourself on the job. So what you better start doing is building your resume of doing these things before the opportunity comes your way. Work on your game. Dre all day.